Story time about how I broke the news to my very religious family that I was single and pregnant. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. My parents are very religious and super strict. I was never allowed to have boyfriends or even talk to boys or even have guy friends. My girlfriends only could come over to my house and I could never go over to friends' houses. I was never even allowed to go to parties. Anytime I needed to make a phone call, my parents would monitor the phone call, so there was absolutely no way I could get away with anything. And I never even lied to them. I got straight A's and graduated valedictorian from my high school. When I turned 18, I went to the university my parents wanted me to go to. My parents are very rich and have lots of money, so I knew that they would get me into whatever university they wanted me to go to. When I finally got accepted into university, I begged them to let me stay on campus, even though we're only a 2-hour drive away from the university. I wanted to have privacy, and of course, I wanted to feel like a grown-up. After months and months of convincing my parents, they finally said yes. They even got me a private dorm so that I wouldn't have to share my room with anyone. For the first time in my life, I had independence and I could make my own decisions. But still, all in all, I was a pretty good girl. I would go to class, go study at the library, and then go back to my dorm. I never went to any parties, but I did start making friends. One of these friends was a really wild girl. She was in my dorm building and she pretty much did everything I ever wanted to do. She was wild and crazy and I just wanted to be like her. She started inviting me to all these house parties and I didn't know how to say no. I went to one of them and I met this really cool guy. At least I thought he was cool at the time. We spoke all night and he tried to make me believe that he was this perfect little boy, and of course, I fell for it. After hanging out a few more times, we did the dirty, and then he ghosted me. This was the first time I had done anything like that, and I was really heartbroken. I was convinced that this guy was gonna marry me. That's how naive I was. After the last time I'd seen him, I realized that I hadn't gotten my period, and when I checked my calendar, it had been 2 months since I got my last period. Now you may ask why I didn't notice this before. Pretty much because I was studying all the time. I never really gave myself any breaks and I was constantly reading books and doing homework. I basically lived in my books. When the realization of not having my period for 2 months came in, I was devastated and I knew that I was pregnant. I ran to the nearest drugstore and got a test. When I saw that it was positive, the first thing I did was call the boy. But like I said, he had ghosted me. But this time he did answer the phone because it had been a few months. I told him that the test was positive. He told me the baby wasn't his and then he hung up. Unfortunately for me, I had no idea where he lived. I decided to Google his name and apparently he didn't even go to the university that I was going to. He was just a friend of some guy that went there. Finally, Christmas break arrives. I was 4 weeks pregnant. The guy that got me pregnant had ghosted me and I knew I had to go home for Christmas from university. I had thought of how I was going to tell my parents and I even wrote them a letter. I was simply going to hand my parents the letter as soon as I got home. But when I got there, they were so happy to see me. I hadn't been home for a few months and I could tell that they really missed me and I just didn't want to spoil the moment. So instead of telling them the first day, I waited until the second day. I came out from my bedroom and my mom asked me why I looked so pale. This is when I just said it. I'm pregnant. My mom instantly began to cry and asked me what happened. I could hear my dad coming down from the stairs. I turned around and said to him, I'm pregnant. When my dad saw my mom crying, he sat down on the couch and said nothing. And this was scarier than him yelling at me. My mom joined him on the couch and then I sat on the floor right next to them. That's when I just decided to tell them the truth. From beginning to end, I told them exactly what happened. Then my dad said, don't worry, we will help you. I could not believe it. And as soon as my dad said that, my mom stopped crying and said, yeah, he's right. We're your family and you don't need that guy. The only thing my dad asked from me was to stay in university. And I told him that there was no way I was going to let my education go to waste. I could tell my parents were really disappointed in me, but they didn't say anything. We had all our family coming over for Christmas dinner, and my dad announced it to everyone then. Instead of acting the way I thought he was going to act, he was almost happy. He wasn't angry, but he was disappointed, but he didn't hide it like a little dirty secret. My family congratulated me, and they were all very happy. But of course, they started asking all these questions. When I told them that the father wouldn't be involved, they were really upset. Luckily, my aunt was dating a private investigator at the time. I gave her the baby daddy's number and name, and she gave it to her boyfriend. He came back with a bunch of information for me. Apparently he was a dropout and didn't have a job, but he came from a very wealthy family. So my parents and I decided to get a lawyer and ask for child support. When I had the baby, my family was so happy. He is literally the light of our lives. He is so loved by his grandparents and I'm so grateful to my parents. We all live together and my baby is 5 years old now. His grandpa and him are best friends and they do everything together. Now the baby daddy wants to be in my child's life, but I don't know if I should say yes or no. Up until last year, he didn't want anything to do with us. But now that he sees that the baby is older and he plays, he wants to be involved now. I don't know if I should say yes, but I also feel bad depriving my child of his father. Merry Christmas, and what should I do?
My 10-year-old neighbor broke my heart tonight. He lives with his aunt after his mom passed away earlier this year and he has 2 younger sisters. I sometimes watch the kids to help his aunt out and every time I see her, she looks worn out. A few months ago, he asked me if he could do some chores to get money because I'm rich and he wanted to buy a birthday cake for his birthday. I asked him why he thought I was rich and he said I always have food in the kitchen, my toilet always flushes, and the apartment was always cold. This was in the summer, so he knows that I'm rich. It was a gut punch because I'm not rich, but I do have my basic needs with a little extras like air conditioning. Tonight, he knocked on my door and asked if I knew if Santa was coming to my house, and if he was, could he and his sister spend the night so they could get presents that they told Santa they wanted. He proceeded to say that he knows that Santa doesn't give gifts to 10-year-old big boys, but wanted his sisters to get gifts. When I asked him who told him that big boys don't get gifts, he said his aunt did. When I asked her what was going on and if she knew that there were a few organizations who would have given all 3 kids gifts, she said that she was afraid to try because she's undocumented. The fear in her eyes made mine well up because I knew she was afraid I was going to turn her in. I wish I had known sooner, even though I have nothing myself, and told her I would help. I went to the Dollar Tree and got each a Santa coloring book and markers. When I was dropping them off, he saw me and his eyes lit up and he said, "You're friends with Santa?" The joy on his face for a coloring book made me sob when I got home. I know that we're all doing the best that we can right now, but I truly hope every kid gets something from Santa. So my wife, 24, and me, 27, had our son 3 months ago. Luckily, as new parents, we've had less issues compared to others in our family, but what really created an issue is the fact that my wife gets way more bonding time with my son than I do. She breastfeeds and doesn't let me come anywhere near her while she's doing it, claiming that she was already in pain and I was making her stress out with my behavior. She promised to let me have my bonding time with him once she's done, but she takes a long time feeding and then the baby goes to sleep, so I pretty much get almost no time to bond with him. It all came to a head for me last night after my wife told me to leave the room while she was feeding our son because I was bothering her and making her feel stressed out with my judgmental comments, but I was just making sure that she was feeding our son properly since she's dealing with stress and possible PPD. So I have to be present in every feeding session to make sure nothing goes wrong. And like I said before, maybe getting a chance to bond with my son, but it didn't end well and I refused to leave the room. She tried to unload on me about how unsupportive and difficult I was being, but I told her that she was wrong to exclude me and take away my attempt at bonding with my son. I suggested that she switch to formula so she has no way of keeping me excluded, and again I could get 50% of the time that she has with him. She called me unreasonable and explained that even though I'm a parent too, she as a mother is essentially what our son needs and relies on, so her role is more important and she gets more time than I do simply because she's the mother. Then she explained that my request was ridiculous because she's blessed to have almost no issues with breastfeeding and switching to formula was absolutely uncalled for and cannot be afforded right now, but I disagreed and argued that she left me no choice and that she needs to respect whatever decision I make regarding our son. She said I'm delusional to think that she'll switch to formula to fix my hurt feelings. She even accused me of making this request so that my mom could meddle in and start feeding our son formula and have sleepovers since she was against her breastfeeding from the start. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Matter of fact, I strongly believe her refusal to consider switching to formula is mainly to spite my mom, not because she thinks my request was unreasonable. Long story short, we kept going back and forth on this argument and she told me to drop it, but I refused because in my opinion, she's being selfish by how she's treating me as the other parent. Am I the asshole for suggesting that my wife switch to formula so I could have more time with our son?
Am I the asshole for wanting to kick my mother-in-law out of my house because she won't stop stinking up our bathroom? My wife and I live in an apartment with a master suite that has an attached bathroom. We also have a guest room and a bathroom in the hallway off the living area. For the last 2 weeks or so, our mother-in-law has been staying with us because her and her husband are having troubles and it's looking like they are headed for divorce. For the most part, it's been okay. My job requires me to be in the office from work, so that limits my interaction with my mother-in-law. But pretty much all she does all day is sit around either watching TV or on her phone. Then when I get home from work, I get a full rundown of all the day's crappy world events and how terrible everything is. That's not the biggest problem here though. I don't know if it's her diet or something medical related, but when she's done in the bathroom, it smells like death. Like I know everyone's poop smells, I'm no idiot, but this is something else altogether. I can't even properly describe it. We have candles and air freshener in the bathroom, but even with the help of those, it's impossible to use the bathroom for about 30 minutes after she's done. And if you leave the door open to air it out, the smell travels to the rest of our place. If you close the door to keep the smell from traveling, it lingers in the bathroom, creating a toxic gas chamber that will smack the next person to open the door square in the face. I'm sorry, but this is so funny. I'm struggling to read it. Okay, my breaking point was over the weekend when my wife was in the hallway bathroom, so my mother-in-law decided to go use the master bathroom. Our room stunk. That was when I had a talk with my wife about having a conversation with her mom about it. I pulled her into our bedroom and closed the door so we could talk, but I also kind of wanted to force her to realize how seriously bad her mom can destroy a bathroom. As we were talking, my wife kept making remarks about how bad the smell was, but refused to talk to her mom about it. My wife just kept saying that everyone's poop smells, and it would be embarrassing to have that kind of conversation with her mom. Like, I get it. No one wants to talk to their parents about that sort of thing, but I honestly think that it could be something health related.
We vibe into a different height. Your hands touching my scars, body shaking hard. I believe I can fly. Da-dee-da-da-da, with you by my side. I believe I can fly. Da-dee-da-da-da, you make me go so high. I believe I can Da-dee-da-da-da, with you by my side. I believe I can believe. Da-dee-da-da-da, you make me.
Hi guys, thank you for watching. I love you guys so much. Please like and subscribe to see more great videos. See you again.